The Valoran battlecruiser moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its name was Pale Judgment, and it was a ship that had seen many battles. The hull was covered with marks and scars from weapons fire. Inside the ship, in the cold cargo hold, a man knelt on the metal floor with his hands tied behind his back. His name was Park Do-hin. He was a captain in the United Earth Navy, and 3 hours ago, he had watched his ship die. The horizon's light had been a small vessel. It was not a warship. It carried medicine and food for a colony that needed help. Do-hin and his crew of 12 were supposed to protect it. They were supposed to keep it safe until it reached the neutral zone. But the Valorans had been waiting. The attack came fast. Too fast. The enemy ships appeared from behind an asteroid field, and before Do-hin could give orders to run, the first shots hit their engines. He remembered the screaming of metal. He remembered the fire. He remembered his crew members calling out names of people they loved as the ship broke apart around them. Now he was alone. The only survivor. The Valorans had pulled him from the wreckage like a fish from water, and they had thrown him into this cargo hold like he was nothing. But Do-hin was not alone in the darkness around him. Huddled against the walls were 7 other prisoners. They were not human. They were Talori, a species known across the galaxy for their peaceful nature. Their skin was silver blue, smooth like river stones. Each of them had 4 eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. They were thin and fragile looking, and right now, they were very afraid. Do-hin had heard stories about the Valorans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories. The Valorans were conquerors. They were hunters. They did not take prisoners because they wanted money or information. They took prisoners because they enjoyed watching them suffer. The cargo hold was cold. Do-hin could see his breath in the air. His wrists hurt where the metal bands cut into his skin. There was dried blood on the side of his head from when a Valoran soldier had hit him. But he did not let the pain show on his face. He had learned long ago that showing pain only made cruel people happy. One of the Talori moved closer to him. She was smaller than the others, younger. Her 4 eyes were wide and wet with tears. She was trying very hard not to cry. She looked at Do-hin like she was studying something strange and new. Her name was Sira. She told him this in a whisper, as if speaking too loud might bring the guards back. "Human," she said softly. "Is it true what they say about your kind?" Do-hin turned his head to look at her. "What did they say?" "That you feel no fear. That you are like machines inside. Cold and hard and unbreakable." For a moment, Do-hin said nothing. Then, very slowly, he shook his head. "We feel fear," he said. His voice was calm and quiet. "We feel it just like everyone else. Our hearts beat fast. Our hands shake. Our minds tell us to run away." He paused. "But we do not let the fear make our choices for us. That is the difference." Sira stared at him. She did not fully understand what he meant, but something about his words made her feel a little less alone. An older Talori male crawled closer. His name was Oren, and he had been a teacher on his homeworld before the Valorans came. His silver blue skin had faded with age, and his movements were slow and painful. But his eyes were still sharp. "Human," Oren said. "You should know the truth about where we are. The Valorans do not keep prisoners for long. They have a fighting pit on this ship. They force prisoners to fight each other, or to fight animals, or to fight machines. It is entertainment for them, sport." "How long do prisoners usually last?" Do-hin asked. Oren looked away. "Some last 1 round. Some last 2. No one has ever lasted 3. The cargo hold fell silent. The Talori prisoners looked at each other with hopeless eyes. They had already accepted their fate. They were waiting to die. But Do-hin was not waiting for anything. His mind was already working. He looked around the cargo hold, studying the walls, the ceiling, the door. He counted the steps from one side to the other. He listened for the footsteps of guards outside. He noticed the pattern of how often they came to check on the prisoners. Sierra watched him with curiosity. "What are you doing?" "Thinking," Do-hyun said. "About what?" "About how to survive." Before Sierra could respond, the cargo hold doors groaned open. Bright light poured in, and all the Tollery prisoners shrank back against the walls. 2 Valoran soldiers entered. They were tall, almost 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered with hard shells like insects, dark brown and shiny. Their faces had no expressions that humans could read, but their mandibles clicked together in a way that sounded like laughter. "The commander wants to see the new cargo," one of them announced. His voice came through a translator device on his chest. Starting with the human. The soldiers grabbed Do-hyun and pulled him to his feet. He did not struggle. There was no point in struggling now. He needed to save his strength for when it mattered. As they dragged him toward the door, Do-hyun looked back at Sierra and the other Tollery. They watched him with eyes full of fear and sadness, like they were watching a dead man walking. Do-hyun gave them a small nod. It was not a goodbye. It was a promise. The soldiers took him through long metal hallways. The ship smelled like oil and something else. Something old and rotten. Do-hyun realized it was the smell of death. Many prisoners had walked these halls before him. None of them had walked back. Finally, they reached a large circular room. The floor was stained with colors Do-hyun did not want to think about. Around the edges of the room, raised platforms held seats where Valoran crew members could watch. This was the fighting pit, and standing in the center, waiting for him, was the biggest Valoran Do-hyun had ever seen, Commander Rothful. The commander was covered with decorations. Bones and teeth and pieces of metal hung from his shell. Each one was a trophy from a different world he had conquered. His eyes, small and black like stones, fixed on Do-hyun with a terrible hunger. "So," the commander said, his voice deep and cold. "This is a human." Do-hyun stood straight. He did not look away. "Yes," he said. "This is a human." The commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Good," he said. "I have been waiting to see what all the stories are about." Commander Rothful walked in a slow circle around Do-hyun. Each step made a heavy sound on the metal floor. The Valoran was studying him like a buyer studies meat at a market. Looking for weakness. Looking for fear. Do-hyun stood still and let him look. "Your species is new to the galaxy," Rothful said. His translator made his voice sound flat and mechanical, but there was a cruel pleasure hiding beneath the words. "Humans have only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. You are babies compared to the old races. Soft, weak." He stopped in front of Do-hyun and leaned down until his mandibles were close to the human's face. "No claws. No armor. No venom. Your bodies break so easily." "We manage," Do-hyun said. Rothful tilted his head. The movement was strange and insect-like. "And yet," he continued, "there are whispers about humans. Stories that spread from world to world. Stories about your kind doing impossible things. Fighting when they should have surrendered. Surviving when they should have died." His black eyes narrowed. "I have heard tales of humans who kept walking with wounds that would kill any other species. Who kept fighting long after their bodies should have stopped working. Is this true?" Do-hyun thought about his grandmother back on Earth. She had lived through wars and famines and disasters. She had raised 6 children with almost nothing. She had buried her husband and 2 of her sons, and she had kept going. She was 87 years old now, and she still woke up every morning before sunrise to tend her garden. "Humans are stubborn," Do-hyun said. "We do not know when to quit." Rothful made the clicking sound that was his species' laughter. "Stubbornness is not strength. It is stupidity." A smart creature knows when it is beaten. A smart creature surrenders and begs for mercy. He straightened up to his full height. But I do enjoy watching stupid creatures fight. It is very entertaining. He turned and walked toward his viewing platform above the fighting pit. Other Valoran crew members were filling the seats around the arena, eager to watch whatever was about to happen. "Tomorrow," Rothful called back over his shoulder, "you will fight in my pit. If you survive 3 rounds, I will consider keeping you alive as a curiosity. Something to show visitors. A pet human." He paused at the edge of the platform and looked back. "If you do not survive 3 rounds, you will die like all the others. Slowly and painfully for our entertainment." The guards grabbed Doyen again and dragged him back to the cargo hold. This time, the walk felt longer. The halls felt darker. The smell of death felt stronger. When they threw him back into the cargo hold, all 7 Talari prisoners were waiting. They gathered around him as soon as the doors closed, their 4 eyes full of questions. "What happened?" Sira asked. "What did the commander say?" Dohyun sat down against the wall. His body ached. His head still throbbed where he had been hit. But his mind was clear. "I have to fight tomorrow," he said. 3 rounds in the arena. If I survive, I live. If I do not survive, I die. The Talori looked at each other with horror. Old Orange shook his head slowly. No one survives 3 rounds. The fights are not designed to be fair. They are designed to destroy hope. The commander does not want winners. He wants broken spirits and slow deaths. "What will you fight?" Another Talori asked. He was young, about the same age as Sira, with a long scar across 2 of his eyes. His name was Tomas. "I do not know yet," Doyun admitted. "But it does not matter. Whatever they put in front of me, I will face it." Sira sat down next to him. She pulled her thin arms around her knees and looked at the floor. "Are you not afraid?" Dohyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Yes, I am afraid." Sira looked up at him with surprise. "But you seem so calm." "Being afraid and being calm are not opposites," Dohyun said. "You can feel fear in your heart and still keep your mind steady. You can be terrified and still make good choices. That is what courage is. It is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act even when you are afraid." The cargo hold was silent for a long time. The Talori prisoners thought about his words. For most of them, fear had always meant freezing. Fear had always meant surrender. The idea that you could be afraid and still fight was strange to them. But something about it made sense. That night, no one slept well. The Talori huddled together for warmth, whispering prayers to gods they hoped were listening. Dohyun sat alone against the wall, his eyes closed, but his mind active. He thought about his ship. The horizon's light. He thought about his crew members who had died. Ensign Big Jie, who had just gotten married 3 months ago. Lieutenant Han Min-soo, who had shown Dohyun pictures of his newborn daughter the day before the mission. Navigator Choi Yoonji, who could find a path through any asteroid field. All of them gone now. All of them dead because the Valorans had decided to attack a ship carrying medicine. Dohyun opened his eyes and looked up at the ceiling. "I will not die here," he whispered to himself. "Not today. Not tomorrow. Not until I have done something that matters." The next morning, the guards came for him. The fighting pit was full of Valorans. They sat in the raised seats, clicking and hissing with excitement. Dohyun was pushed into the center of the arena. The floor was hard metal, stained with old blood and other things. The walls were high and smooth, impossible to climb. Commander Rothfall sat on his platform above, watching with hungry eyes. "First round," the commander announced. "The human will fight the crawler." A door on the far side of the arena opened. Something came out of the darkness. It was an animal, but it was like no animal Do-yoon had ever seen. It was the size of a large dog, but it had too many legs and too many teeth. Its body was covered with spines, and it moved with a horrible jerking motion. The crawler saw Do-hyun and screamed. It was a high, terrible sound that made his blood turn cold. Then it charged. Do-hyun had no weapon. He had nothing but his hands and his feet and his stubborn human mind. But as the creature ran toward him, something happened inside him. The fear was still there, but it moved to the back of his thoughts. The front of his mind became calm and clear. He watched the crawler approach. He studied how it moved. He noticed that it favored its left side. He saw that its eyes were on the front of its head, which meant it could not see well to the sides. At the last moment, Do-hyun jumped to the right. The crawler missed him by centimeters. Its claws scraped against the metal floor as it tried to turn. Do-hyun did not wait. He ran forward and grabbed one of its spines. He pulled with all his strength and felt the spine break free. Now he had a weapon. The crawler screamed again and turned to face him. But this time, Do-hyun was ready. The fight was brutal. The crawler was fast and vicious. It cut Do-hyun's arm and his leg. It knocked him down twice. But each time he fell, he got back up. Each time it attacked, he dodged and struck back. Finally, after what felt like hours, Do-hyun drove the spine through the creature's head. The crawler fell. The arena fell silent. Then, slowly, the Valorans began to click. It was applause of a sort. They were impressed. Commander Rothfull leaned forward in his seat. 1 round down, he said. 2 to go. The second round was worse than the first. They sent a broken combat drone into the arena. It was a machine built for killing, but something was wrong with its programming. It moved in strange, unpredictable ways. Sometimes it was fast. Sometimes it was slow. Sometimes it stopped completely, and then attacked without warning. The Valorans thought this was funny. They clicked and hissed with laughter as Do-hyun tried to dodge the machine's wild swings. The drone had blades for hands, and each time it got close, it left new cuts on Do-hyun's body. Blood ran down his arms. Blood ran down his face. His left eye was swelling shut from a blow that had almost cracked his skull. Every breath hurt. His ribs were probably broken. But Do-hyun did not stop. He could not stop. Every time he wanted to fall down and give up, he thought about his crew. He thought about the Talori prisoners waiting in the cargo hold. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived things much worse than this and had never stopped fighting. Humans were stubborn. That was what he had told the commander. And now he was proving it. The fight lasted 30 minutes. In the end, Do-hyun managed to climb onto the drone's back and tear out its power core with his bare hands. The machine fell to the ground, sparking and dead. Do-hyun fell too. He lay on the arena floor, gasping for air, his whole body screaming with pain. Above him, the Valoran audience made sounds of surprise and approval. They had not expected the human to survive. Commander Rothfull stood up from his seat. "Impressive," he said. His voice was calm, but there was something new in it. Something that might have been respect or might have been worry. "Very impressive. You are stronger than you look, human." Do-hyun managed to push himself up onto his knees. "I told you," he said, his voice rough. "We do not know when to quit." Rothfull's mandibles clicked slowly. 2 rounds completed. 1 round remains. He paused. "I will give you 1 night to rest. Tomorrow, you will face your final challenge. I promise you, human, it will be special." The guards dragged Do-hyun back to the cargo hold. When they threw him inside, the Talori prisoners rushed to help him. Sira brought water from a small container they had been given. Oren used strips of cloth to bandage his wounds. Tomas supported his weight while he walked to the wall. "You survived," Sira whispered. Her voice was full of wonder. "You actually survived." "So far," Do-hyun said. He sat down heavily, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "One more round tomorrow." Oren looked at him with worried eyes. "You are badly hurt. How will you fight again?" "I will manage," Do-hyun said. But even he was not sure if that was true. That night, Sira sat next to him while the others slept. She did not say anything for a long time. She just sat there, watching him breathe, watching him heal. Finally, she spoke. "Why do you keep fighting?" Do-hyun opened his good eye and looked at her. "What do you mean? You could give up. No one would blame you. The Valorans are too strong. Their ship is too powerful. There is no hope of escape. So why do you keep trying?" Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because giving up means they win. Not just the fight. They win everything. They get to decide who I am and how I die." He shook his head slowly. "I do not want them to have that power. My life is mine. My choices are mine. Even if I cannot control what happens to me, I can control how I respond to it." Sira thought about this. "On my world," she said softly, "we are taught that sometimes surrender is wise. That fighting against impossible odds is foolish. That a peaceful death is better than a violent struggle." "Maybe that is true sometimes," Do-hyun agreed. "But there are things worth struggling for, even if you know you will lose." He looked at her with his swollen eye. "You are worth struggling for. Oren is worth struggling for. Every life on this ship is worth struggling for." Sira's 4 eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. The next morning, the guards came again. This time, they did not just take Do-hyun. They grabbed Sira too. Do-hyun tried to fight them. He threw himself at the guards, ignoring the pain in his broken body. But there were too many of them. They hit him until he stopped moving, then dragged both prisoners out of the cargo hold. The arena was full again. The Valoran crew members were excited. They knew something special was about to happen. Commander Rothful stood on his platform, looking down with cold satisfaction. "The final round," he announced. "This will be a test not of strength, but of spirit." The guards threw Sira onto the arena floor across from Do-hyun. She landed hard and cried out in pain. Then a Valoran soldier walked over to her and pressed something into her shaking hands. It was a blade. Small and crude, but sharp enough to kill. "The rules are simple," Rothful said. "One of you must die. If neither of you kills the other, you will both be executed slowly. Very slowly." His mandibles clicked with pleasure. "Fight, now." Sira looked at the blade in her hands. Then she looked at Do-hyun. Her whole body was trembling. Tears ran down her silver blue skin. "I cannot do this," she whispered. "I cannot kill you, but I cannot watch you die either." She held the blade out toward him with shaking hands. "Please, please, just make it quick. I do not want to suffer. If you must kill me, human, make it fast." It is the only mercy the first ask. The arena fell completely silent. Every Valoran was watching. Every eye was on Do-hyun. They waited to see what he would do. They waited to see the human break. They waited to watch him become a monster, just like them. Do-hyun looked at Sira. He looked at her 4 eyes, filled with terror and hopelessness. He looked at her thin body, shaking with fear. He looked at the blade she was offering him like a gift. He thought about everything he had said to her. About fighting. About never giving up. About how your choices define who you are. Then he reached out his hand, and he took the blade from her. The Valorans leaned forward with excitement. Do-hyun looked at the blade for a long moment. It was light in his hand. It would be easy to use. One quick movement, and Cirrus' suffering would be over. One quick movement, and he would survive. He threw the blade across the arena. It clattered against the metal floor, spinning away into the darkness. The Valorans made sounds of confusion. This was not what they expected. "No," Do-Yoon said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent arena. "I will not kill her." Commander Rothval's mandibles clicked rapidly. "What did you say?" Do-Yoon turned to face the commander directly. He stood straight, despite his broken ribs. He looked up at the viewing platform with his one good eye. "I said no. I will not kill her. I will not kill anyone for your entertainment." He stepped in front of Syrah, putting his body between her and the commander. "You want to see what humans really are? This is it. We do not survive by becoming monsters. We survive by choosing not to be." Syrah stared at his back with wide, unbelieving eyes. No one had ever protected her before. No one had ever stood between her and death. "You are a fool," Rothval said. His voice was hard and angry. "You are choosing death." Do-Yoon did not move. "I am choosing who I want to be when I die. That matters more than whether I live or not." The arena was completely silent. The Valorans did not know how to respond. In their culture, survival was everything. A warrior who refused to fight when his life was at stake was not brave. He was broken. But Do-Yoon did not look broken. He looked like the most dangerous thing in the room. And for the first time, the Valorans felt something they had not felt in a very long time. They felt afraid. The silence in the arena stretched on and on. It felt like the whole universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Commander Rothval stood on his platform, his black eyes fixed on Do-Yoon. The human had done something impossible. He had refused to play the game. He had broken the rules that the Valorans lived by, and now no one knew what to do. In Valoran culture, strength was everything. The strong survived. The weak died. That was the natural order of things. Every species they had conquered had accepted this truth eventually. Every prisoner they had captured had fought to save themselves, when given the chance. But this human was different. He had been given a choice between killing and dying, and he had chosen neither. He had chosen something else entirely. He had chosen to stand in front of a weak, helpless creature and protect her with his own body. It made no sense. It went against every law of nature that the Valorans understood, and it scared them. "Kill them both," Rothval ordered. His voice was hard, but there was a small shake in it that had not been there before. "Kill them now." The guards in the arena started to move forward. There were 6 of them, all armed with weapons that could cut through metal. Do-Yoon had no chance against them. He knew that. Syrah knew that. Everyone watching knew that. But Do-Yoon did not move. He stayed where he was, standing between Syrah and the approaching guards. If he was going to die, he would die protecting someone. That was the choice he had made. That was the human he wanted to be. Then something unexpected happened. In the viewing area where the Talori prisoners were being held, Old Orn rose slowly to his feet. His aged body shook with the effort. His 4 eyes were bright with something that looked like hope. "We stand with the human," Orn said. His voice was not loud, but somehow it carried across the arena. "If he dies, we die beside him. Not fighting, not broken, together." Next to him, Tomas stood up. Then another Talori. Then another. One by one, all 7 prisoners rose to their feet. They did not have weapons. They did not have strength. But they had something else now. They had an example to follow. The Valoran guards hesitated. They looked at each other with uncertainty. This was not how prisoners were supposed to behave. Prisoners were supposed to beg and cry and fight each other for the chance to live one more day. They were not supposed to stand together and accept death with dignity. Rothval's mandibles clicked with frustration. "What are you waiting for?" He shouted at his guards. "Kill them all." But the guards did not move. Something had changed in the room. The air felt different. The power had shifted somehow, even though nothing physical had happened. A young Valoran officer hurried up to Rothval's platform. He was moving quickly, his shell clicking with alarm. He leaned close to the commander and spoke in rapid whispers. Do-yoon watched the exchange carefully. He could not hear what was being said, but he could see the effect it had. Rothval's body went stiff. His mandibles stopped clicking. His black eyes widened slightly. The commander turned back to face the arena. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder, more careful. "It seems we have a problem," he said. "Our long-range sensors have detected ships entering the sector. Human ships. A battle fleet from the United Earth Navy." He paused. "They are moving toward our position." Do-hyun felt his heart jump in his chest. The horizon's light. His ship had sent a distress signal before it was destroyed. He had not known if anyone had heard it. He had not known if anyone was coming, but someone had heard. And someone was coming. How long until they arrive? Do-hyun asked. Rothval ignored the question. He turned to his officers and began giving orders. The arena descended into chaos. Valoran soldiers ran in all directions. Alarms started sounding throughout the ship. The crew members in the viewing seats scrambled to get to their battle stations. In the middle of it all, Do-hyun stood perfectly still. Sira was behind him, her hand touching his back, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a storm. "They are coming for you," she whispered. "Your people are coming." Do-hyun shook his head slowly. "I did not know. I hoped, but I did not know." Sira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You would have died for me, even without knowing if rescue was coming. You would have died protecting me." "Yes," Do-hyun said simply. "Why?" He turned to look at her. His face was swollen and bloody. His body was broken in a dozen places. But his eyes were clear and calm. "Because that is who I want to be," he said. "That is who humans choose to be." The battle began 20 minutes later. The Pale Judgment was a powerful ship, but it was alone. The United Earth Navy fleet consisted of 5 vessels, led by a heavy cruiser called the Indomitable. Its captain was a woman named Lee Yuna, and she had served with Do-hyun for 10 years before he got his own command. When she received the distress signal from the horizon's light, she had gathered every ship she could find and burned hard across 3 star systems to reach this position. She did not know if she would find survivors. She did not care about the odds. Do-hyun was her friend, and humans did not leave their friends behind. The battle was brutal but short. Valoran ships were fast and vicious, designed for quick raids and terror attacks. But human ships were different. They were built by a species that had spent thousands of years at war with itself. Every human warship was designed to take damage and keep fighting. Every human crew was trained to push through pain and fear and exhaustion. The Indomitable took 7 direct hits during the engagement. It kept fighting. Its weapons kept firing. Its crew kept working. In the end, the Pale Judgment was disabled. Its engines were destroyed. Its weapons were offline. It drifted dead in space, waiting for the humans to come aboard. The boarding teams moved through the ship like ghosts. They were professional and efficient. They secured corridor after corridor, taking Valoran prisoners and freeing captured slaves. When they reached the cargo hold, they found the Talari prisoners huddled together in a corner. Old Oren was trying to comfort the others. Tomas was standing guard at the door with nothing but a piece of broken metal in his hands. And in the middle of the room, standing over a young Talori female, was Captain Park Do-hyun. He was barely conscious. His body was covered with wounds. He had been standing in that same spot since the battle began, refusing to move, refusing to leave Sira unprotected. The human Marines had to physically hold him up when they reached him. "Captain Park," the rescue team leader said with a crisp salute. "Your signal was received. We came as fast as we could." Do-hyun looked at the Marine with his one good eye. For a moment, he did not seem to understand where he was or what was happening. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Thank you," he said. And then his legs gave out and he collapsed. Sierra caught him before he hit the ground. She held his head in her lap, her 4 eyes streaming with tears, and she did not let go until the medics came to take him away. "He saved me," she told them. "He saved all of us. He is the bravest being I have ever known." The medics just nodded. They had heard stories like this before. Stories about humans who did impossible things. Stories about a species that was soft and weak and had no natural weapons, but somehow kept winning anyway. It was just what humans did. The medical bay of the Indomitable was quiet and clean. White lights hummed softly overhead. Machines beeped in steady rhythms. It was so different from the dark, cold cargo hold of the Valoran ship that Sierra had trouble believing she was still alive. She sat in a chair next to Do-hyun's bed, watching him sleep. The human doctors had worked on him for 6 hours. They had fixed his broken ribs. They had treated the cuts and bruises that covered his body. They had done something to reduce the swelling around his eye. Now he was resting, his chest rising and falling slowly, his face finally peaceful. The door opened and Captain Lee Yuna walked in. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but there were dark circles under her eyes that showed she had not slept in days. She stood at the foot of Do-hyun's bed and looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to Sierra. "You must be the one he protected," she said. Sierra nodded. She was still not used to human expressions, but she thought she saw something like kindness in the captain's face. "He was very brave," Sierra said. "He stood between me and death. He refused to fight even when it meant he would die." Captain Yuna smiled slightly. "That sounds like Do-hyun. He was always the stubborn one." She paused. "I have known him for 10 years. We served together on 3 different ships before we got our own commands. He's the best person I know. Why did you come?" Sierra asked. "You risked your ships and your crew to save prisoners. You did not know who was still alive. You did not know if the fight would be worth it." Yuna looked at her with serious eyes. "We received a distress signal from his ship. That was enough. But the odds were against you." "But the odds do—" "The Valorans could have killed you all." "Maybe," Yuna agreed. "But we came anyway. That is what humans do. We do not leave our people behind. We do not abandon those who need help." She glanced at Do-hyun's sleeping form. "And now I understand why Do-hyun stood in front of you in that arena. He was doing the same thing we did. He was refusing to leave someone behind, even if it cost him everything." Sierra thought about this for a long time. The next day, Do-hyun woke up. His body still hurt, but his mind was clear. The first thing he saw when he opened his eyes was Sierra's face looking down at him. "You are awake," she said. "I noticed," Do-hyun replied with a weak smile. Sierra helped him sit up in bed. The medical bay was busy now. Other rescued prisoners were being treated. Human doctors and nurses moved between beds, checking on patients, giving medicine, speaking kind words. "What happened to the Valorans?" Do-hyun asked. "Commander Rothval and his crew are being held in your ship's prison cells," Sierra said. "They will be taken to Earth for trial. Your people say they committed many crimes against many species. They will face justice." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "Good. The other Talori prisoners are safe. Arn wanted to thank you himself, but the doctors made him rest. He's very old, and the experience was hard on him." Sierra paused. "They are arranging transport to take us home, to our world." That is good news, Doyen said. Sira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I need to tell you something. In the arena, when I asked you to kill me, I meant it. I had given up. I believed that death was the only escape. I believed that mercy could only come at the end of a blade. She looked down at her hands. You showed me something different. You showed me that mercy can also come from standing between someone and harm. That strength can mean refusing to hurt someone, even when hurting them would save yourself. She looked back up at him. You changed something in me, Park Doyen. Something important. Doyen reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, strange compared to human skin, but he did not mind. I did not do anything special, he said. I just made a choice. Everyone makes choices every day. The choices we make in hard times show who we really are. That is easy to say, Sira replied. It is much harder to do. Yes, Doyen agreed. It is, but you do it anyway. That is what matters. 3 days later, the Indomitable arrived at Space Station Horizon. It was a large human station on the edge of known space, a meeting point for many different species. The Talori refugees were transferred to a Talori vessel that would take them the rest of the way home. Before she left, Sira found Doyen on the station's observation deck. He was standing by a large window, looking out at the stars. His injuries were healing well. The swelling around his eye was almost gone. He looked tired but peaceful. I came to say goodbye, Sira said. Doyen turned and smiled at her. I am glad. I was hoping I would see you before you left. They stood together by the window for a while, watching ships come and go. In the distance, a Talori transport was preparing to depart. When I get home, Sira said finally, I'm going to tell everyone what you did. I'm going to tell them about the human who refused to fight, who stood between death and a stranger, who showed that mercy is the greatest strength. Doyen shook his head. You do not need to do that. I did not do it for recognition. I know, Sira said. That is why the story needs to be told. Because you did not want anything in return. You did it because it was right. She paused. My people need to hear that story. The galaxy needs to hear that story. She was right, though Doyen did not know it yet. The story spread. It traveled from Sira's homeworld to trading posts, from trading posts to space stations, from space stations to other worlds. Travelers and merchants and refugees carried it with them wherever they went. They spoke of a human who had been captured by the Valorans, a human who had survived the fighting pits, a human who had been ordered to kill a helpless prisoner and had refused, who had thrown away his weapon and stood in front of a frightened girl and dared an empire to do its worst. That they spoke of mercy as a weapon more powerful than any blade on 100 worlds. Beings who had never met a human began to wonder about this strange species. These soft, weak creatures with no claws and no armor. These stubborn people who did not know when to quit. These impossible beings who believe that how you live matters as much as whether you live. 6 months after the rescue, Dohyun stood in a ceremony hall on Earth. He was wearing his formal uniform. His injuries had healed completely, though he would carry the scars forever. He did not mind. Scars told stories. The United Earth Navy was giving him a commendation for valor. There were cameras and reporters and important people in suits. Dohyun did not care much for any of it. He had not done what he did for medals or attention, but he stood straight and accepted the honor with grace. He shook hands with admirals and smiled for photographs. After the ceremony, he walked out of the hall and found a quiet corner away from the crowds. He pulled out his communication device and made a call. An old woman's face appeared on the screen. Her skin was wrinkled with age. Her hair was white and thin, but her eyes were sharp and bright and full of love. Grandma, Dohyun said, did you see the ceremony? Of course I saw it. his grandmother replied. I watched it 3 times. My grandson, a hero. She smiled, and it was the warmest thing Do-yoon had seen in months. But you did not need a medal to tell me what I already knew. What is that? That you are a good man. That you make good choices. That you remember what I taught you when you were small. Do-yoon felt tears forming in his eyes. He did not try to stop them. I remembered, he said. In the arena, when everything was falling apart, I remembered what you told me. About how the measure of a person is what they do when no one would blame them for doing the easy thing. His grandmother nodded slowly. And you did the hard thing. Yes, that is all I ever wanted for you. She reached toward the screen, as if she could touch his face. Come home soon, my boy. I will make your favorite dinner. We will sit in the garden, and you will tell me all about the stars. Do-hyun smiled through his tears. I will come home soon. I promise. He ended the call and looked up at the sky. The sun was setting over the city, painting the clouds in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, beyond the atmosphere, ships were traveling between worlds. Species were meeting and trading and sometimes fighting. And somewhere, on a distant planet, a young Talori female named Sira was telling her people about a human named Park Do-hyun. About mercy, about courage, about the choice to be kind, even when the universe made it hard. The story would keep spreading. It would reach worlds that Do-hyun would never visit. It would touch hearts that he would never know. And maybe, just maybe, it would change something. Maybe it would show the galaxy that there was another way. A better way. That was enough. That was more than enough. Do-hyun looked at the fading sunset and smiled. We survive by choosing not to be monsters, he said softly to himself. That is what humans do. And then he went home.